Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into it with Ghost's brand new sixth album, Skeletá.
Yeah.
There's been huge anticipation for this one, hasn't there? Especially after, where Impera took things.
Oh, absolutely. And the sources we've looked at, they really hammer home that excitement. It actually feels like the buzz for Skeletá, well, it might have even edged past the hype we saw for Impera, which was already pretty significant.
Right. So what do you think fueled that extra level of expectation?
Well, that's a good question. I think part of it, maybe a big part, came from those first tastes we got.
The singles, Peacefield, Lacrima, Satanize.
Exactly, those three. The reactions just seemed overwhelmingly positive, like hitting the mark with critics and the fans globally.
Yeah, I saw that too. But what's really caught my eye in the material is this story about changing minds.
Oh, you mean the reviewer who admitted being a former elitist hater?
Yes, that one. Finds themselves way more excited for Skeletá than previous albums. That kind of turnaround, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. It really is. And they actually link it to something specific.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
It seems to be about a broader appreciation for just, well, good songwriting.
Mm.
Referencing bands like Deep Purple, Rainbow, Scorpions.
The classics.
Yeah, Kiss, Rush, Europe, Thin Lizzy, but also pulling in, like, 70s and 80s pop hooks.
Okay, so it suggests Skeletá might be hitting some fundamental songwriting nerve that cuts across genres.
That's the idea, yeah.
Yeah.
A focus on that core musical quality.
Makes sense. So, okay, with all this buildup, these changing perspectives, what kind of ride does Skeletá actually take you on? What's the journey like?
Well, the descriptions paint a picture of something pretty dynamic, turbulent even, heavy, unusual, a real musical roller coaster is how one source put it.
A roller coaster, huh?
Yeah, and apparently it goes into unexplored and uncharted horizons for Ghost.
Uncharted for Ghost. Now that's interesting. For a band with such a distinct sound already, what does that even look like?
Well, we're hearing about a mix. Catchy hard rock riffs meeting classic heavy metal. But then, layered over that, you get these big, like, 80s AOR choruses popping up quite a bit.
Right, those anthemic choruses.
Exactly. And get this, there's even a Scorpions-style ballad called Guiding Lights.
Ballad, okay.
That apparently has an 80s horror movie keyboard theme running through
Wait,
it.
what? An 80s horror vibe in a Scorpions-style ballad?
Yeah.
That's a curveball. Definitely uncharted territory there. Okay, let's zoom in. Any specific tracks getting a lot of attention? De Profundis Borealis, I saw that mentioned.
Yeah, that one comes up a lot. It's highlighted for just this relentless heavy metal feel, like a constant heavy backbeat driving it forward. Sounds intense.
Okay, a real headbanger then. Cool. What about Cenotaph? The name itself is kind of evocative.
This is a Taff, described as a mid-tempo banger. And here's another interesting mix.
Go on.
A Judas Priest and Rush love child.
Whoa! Priest and Rush. How do you even picture that? Like Priest's power and Rush's complex.
Exactly. That's the impression it gives. Classic metal power meets prog rock brains.
That sounds potentially amazing. Okay, switching gears again. Missilia Amori. Sounds like a totally different direction.
Completely. Yeah, that one's noted for being super catchy, like a straight-up throwback to 80s glam metal, glam rock.
Oh, so like Rat, Def Leppard, Mötley Crüe kind of thing.
Precisely. That kind of energy. Sounds like pure retro fun.
A bit of Sunset Strip swagger in the Ghost sound. Could work. And then there were a couple others. One reviewer really liked Marks of the Evil One and Umbra.
Yeah, those two. Described as having this solid heavy metal foundation, but mixed with arena rock grandness. Personal standouts for that reviewer.
Heavy metal and arena rock.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like huge live track.
Seems like it, yeah. Powerful riffs, big sing-along potential.
And then the album closes with Excelsis. It's being compared to some older, more emotional tracks.
That's right. Positioned as the big emotional finale, like Life Eternal or Respite on the Spitalfields.
Yeah, okay, so
Right.
aiming for that kind of impact.
Yeah, described as really moving. Apparently, Frederick's guitar solo on it is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Really hits you emotionally. Sounds like they want to leave you with something powerful.
Definitely sounds like an album with a real emotional arc. Now, moving beyond just the tracks, the sources talk about the overall feel. Progressive. Complex.
Yeah, that's a key point. The structure itself is described as complex, progressive,
Yeah.
even drawing comparisons to early Rush and Genesis.
Wow, okay, Rush and Genesis, how does that fit with Ghost?
Well, it suggests this sense of musical exploration leading to an otherworldly kind of listen.
Otherworldly. How does that actually, like, feel when you're listening?
One reviewer specifically said listening to it reminded them of hearing early Genesis albums. Trespass, Selling England by the Pound.
Right, those really immersive albums.
Exactly, that sense of a journey, not just songs. And it apparently has this strong flow that digs into some psychological stuff, too. Feels like an album you need to listen to multiple times.
So more than just the hits, there's a deeper structure going on. Interesting. And speaking of the sound itself, the influences mentioned are all over the place.
Oh, yeah, it's a real mix. You've got the AOR Masters Journey, Toto, Europe, Foreigner.
The big stadium sounds.
But then, alongside that, the hard rock and heavy metal foundations. Deep Purple, Rush Again, Priest, Sabbath, Def Leppard, Maiden, Scorpions. It's a long list.
That's like a Hall of Fame of rock right there. Are there any moments where these different sounds really collide in like an unexpected way?
There's one specific example highlighted. The middle part of Umbra.
Okay, what happens there?
Apparently it blends a riff that sounds kind of like Slayer's Black Magic.
The Slayer.
Yeah, but mixes it with Deep Purple's, like instrumental skill, and Rush's complex arrangement.
Hold on. Slayer, Deep Purple, and Rush, all in one section.
Sounds wild, right? But described as surprising yet really effective. Quite a blend.
That's definitely something you'd need to hear to believe. Okay, and the production. How does Skeletá actually sound compared to, say, Impera?
It's described as bigger, more expansive, leaning much more towards that huge arena rock sound than Impera did.
Ah, okay.
Seems like they really went for a grander, maybe more polished feel this time.
Bigger sound, matching those arena influences. Makes sense. But with all this talk of change, new directions, 80s horror keyboards, it sounds like Skeletá might not be what some fans were expecting.
That's a really crucial point, yeah.
Right.
The sources definitely suggest this is a departure.
Right.
There's a sense that if you were hoping for Impera Part 2, or maybe a return to the opus eponymous or infestissimum sound, this might feel quite different.
So maybe an album for fans who are ready for Ghost to stretch out a bit.
Exactly. It's framed as being, for listeners, open to exploring something new, ready for the unexpected. Apparently making Impera 2.0 was just never the goal here.
Okay. But what if someone doesn't connect right away? Is there potential for it to grow on you?
The feeling is that it might be a slow burn.
Yeah.
An album that reveals itself more over time with repeated listens.
Ah, one of those.
Yeah, potentially leading to a deeper appreciation down the line. There's even a suggestion this might be the album Tobias Forge kind of wanted the fans to eventually embrace.
Interesting. Like a deliberate push towards a new sound they hope the audience comes along for. Okay, let's get to the chase. The verdicts. What's the final word from the sources we looked at?
Well, one reviewer went all in. Perfect 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Wow.
Yeah, called it one of their absolute favorite Ghost albums up there with Opus and Meliora. Described it as a life-changing experience, having a Phoenix Rising quality. Pretty strong stuff.
That's incredibly high praise. What about other perspectives? Was it all that glowing?
Well, another take called it inescapable.
Inescapable? How so?
Because of the hooks, the riffs, the melodies, the whole atmosphere, the production, just really compelling. And it really doubles down on it being a tribute to 80s arena rock.
Okay, so that 80s influence is really central.
Definitely. Comparisons drawn directly to Def Leppard, Rat, Dokken, Twisted Sister, Journey, even mid-80s Ozzy and Blue Oyster Cult. It really seems to cement Ghost as, fundamentally, a hard rock band with those metal edges.
So Skeletá kind of solidifies that identity for them.
That's the argument, yeah.
Yep.
And tracks like Basilio Mori and Marks of the Evil One get called out again as just these huge, infectious chorus bangers.
Gotcha. Any specific sonic details that really scream 80s arena?
Yeah, the guitar tones and the vocals are mentioned specifically. Lots of echo, lots of reverb.
Oh, that big, spacious sound.
Exactly. Apparently very reminiscent of Ozzy's Ultimate Sin era sound. That kind of sonic fingerprint really places it in that time.
That's a great reference point. Really paints a picture.
Yeah.
There was also something about the band's like overall status now.
Right. Acknowledging their journey, from being more underground to now being described as a futuristic modern-day version of Kiss.
Aha. Okay. Big statement.
Yeah, just recognizing their huge popularity, the merch everywhere, their status as proper large-scale rock stars.
They've definitely embraced that whole persona, haven't they?
Absolutely. And so ultimately, for some, Skeletá is seen as the peak, the absolute zenith for Ghost.
Zenith, wow.
Yeah, like the culmination of this whole 15-plus year creative path and just a massive celebration of that 80s arena rock sound they clearly love.
Well, that has certainly been a deep dive into Skeletá. It really sounds like a major statement album for Ghost.
Mm.
One that leans hard into those 80s arena vibes, but still keeps some progressive threads and those big emotional moments. Sounds like one you might need to sit with for a bit, yeah? Let it
Oh,
unfold.
definitely. Rewards an open mind, seems like. Invites you to really get lost in that soundscape.
For sure. So as you're processing all this, the varied reactions, this clear pivot to a specific rock era, maybe think about this. What is the way Skeletá is received, whether it tops charts or becomes more of a dedicated fan favorite? What does that tell us about where rock and metal tastes are at in 2025? Something to chew on. Thanks for diving deep with us today.